There we go. Cool. So thank you so much, guys, for showing up. It's really cool that so many people came to hear me talk. That's incredible. So I'm Nate Bedford. I'm a concept artist working in video games. I've been working for a little bit over 3 years now, primarily in-house, but I've just recently gone to be a freelancer. Before that, I was a university lecturer at Falmouth University, and I've spoke at different schools since then, talking to students at various different levels. And I was super passionate about all that, so that I decided to kind of go into private one-to-one mentoring, helping people develop their concept art skills from there. As mentioned, I was working for about 3 years in-house for a studio in Liverpool, UK, called the Milky Tea, owned by Aonic. There I worked on multiple projects. I worked on, developed the characters, environments, props, and vehicles. But I was very, very focused on world building, like creating a consistent lore and doing like narrative design via concept art, which is, I think, when you work in a small studio like Milky Tea, like an indie studio, you get an opportunity to have like a lot of creative agency and sort of reach across the aisle and talk to different departments. So that experience was like really, really valuable and gave me lots of insight to how different departments work as well, and touch concept art during that. So yeah, this was the latest game that I've published. It was called Grit and Valor 1949. It came out earlier this year, kind of March time. As I mentioned, I kind of worked on like characters, environments, lots of world building stuff, but I also got a really cool opportunity to design some of the mechs that went into this game. It's like an alternative World War II strategy roguelike. So the mechs are kind of the center of this world. So it's really cool to have an opportunity to work on that. So that's kind of my professional work. I've been working obviously on personal work, on self-study over the last 3 years, and even before that, which is kind of the point of my talk. And I wanted to take you through some of the biggest project that I've been working on. It's this world building project called Valiant. It's kind of a dark Norse fantasy. So I've been doing like sort of keyframes, as you can see here. I did some environment designs. This is like a settlement called Nico, and even sort of like kind of in-depth line work that sort of breaks down different aspects of the gate structure and the portcullis mechanism, and really sort of lays it out for someone who is going to build it in 3D, which is a big part of what concept art is. So when I was coming up with this talk, and I was thinking about like what kind of value can I bring to you guys, I looked back on my time as a student, my time as a lecturer, my self-study that is even going on right now. And I was thinking, like, if I could go back and talk to myself back then, what advice could I give myself? And I really thought about, alongside my studies at university, I was doing stuff online, like probably most of you guys are, and just even more now than there is then, navigating the internet and like all the content there is out there. Like it's so difficult. And there's no set curriculum a lot of the time. There's YouTube series and sort of standalone stuff. There's short form, long form content, paid for stuff. You're not knowing whether or not that like caters towards you and your skill set, where you're trying to go. And then also like conflicting ideas, and lots of people are trying to tell you like their way is the best way, which I think, like, especially when it comes to art, I don't think there is like a one true way. I think everybody's journey is a little bit different. At least I like to think so. I think the best thing to do is to give you back some agency over your learning and sort of give you some tools on how you might be able to find direction and structure your self-study. There we go. So a couple of pitfalls that I fell into when I was at university and continuing my studies from there. I found I spread myself far too thin across lots of different things that I really like the sound of. I worked on some low-level film stuff in Denmark, which I recently went to Denmark, and then it turns out loads of people knew what I worked on, and that was a very strange experience. I took on commissions and worked with like friends and made like group projects like outside of our studies, and obviously chipped away some personal projects as well alongside my uni, like full-time uni course. It was a hell of a lot to give. I was spread quite thin, and if I was to go back and tell myself anything, I'd be like, focus on one or two things at a time, so you can give all your energy to those things and get like really rewarding work that you can show off to people, as opposed to trying to do lots of things and not being really happy with any of it, which is kind of what ended up happening a lot of the time. I'm just going to take a sip of coffee. I also think like making actual portfolio work and not just studying. Maybe I'm the only one who was guilty of this, but I did it a lot when I was kind of coming up. I was in the impression that if I got technically good enough, then I would get a job, and someone would show up and they were like, you are good enough at drawing now, and here's the job that you've been waiting for. And I'd be like, oh, thank you so much. And then that's things complete. It unfortunately, especially in this landscape, is not the case. So you need to develop a skill set that that shows that you can do the job that you're looking to do. I know that there aren't just concept artists here. There are probably 3D artists, character artists, environment artists, VFX tech, like all of this applies. So knowing your software really well, or like knowing how to visually code, like in Niagara, it like all well and good. But you also need to sort of like show that you can work in production and that you're a creative artist who can add some value to the pipeline. And finally, it's like get your work out there, right? Like I think I didn't engage enough in communities when I was at university. I didn't want to put out my high effort work because I didn't think it was good enough. But unfortunately, because of that, I didn't get a lot of helpful crit when I was coming up, because I was too afraid to sort of show off that work. And now I look back and I knew that in the long run it would have helped me, rather than get gratification on like a local scale. I could have talked to people who knew a lot more than me and get some really, really valuable feedback and kind of allow me to produce higher quality work. It also avoids the, oh, it's just a sketch or it's just a study mentality. It takes a really big portion of vulnerability and humble, like, humility to put some really high effort work out there and get constructive feedback from lots of different people from different walks of life, right? Because it really showcases where your skill set is, and where your skill set is, might be incredible. It might not be quite there. Like, you need to sort of like feel that out, and you'll only know if you talk to people who might know a little bit more than you. So off the back of that, I kind of developed a structure, and it might be quite self-explanatory in lots of cases, but I think it took me a while to figure out to help me and find direction in my self-study, right? Going back to how hard it is to navigate all of this information that's out there. I implemented it on myself, over the course of a few years. I am about to step back from doing pro work because my contract's coming to an end. So it's something I'm about to sort of implement on myself now. And I work with one-to-one mentorships. I use this with my students quite a lot. This is kind of how I structure their learning as well. So it's an idea that I can fully back to to be something, at least in my experience, has worked quite well. So I would, to first off, you just need to look at your own work. You should be like the kind of number one critic, right? And be honest with yourself, but not unkind, and say whether you're happy with this, right? Whether you're is it just good enough, or is it could it be pushed more? If you were to go back and do things differently, how would you do it differently, right? If you were to hand this to an art director, would you honestly be proud of it? And does it reflect the skill set that you think you have? And if so, why, right? Or if not, why? So taking all this information, write it down. You know what I mean? Like, use note-taking software, piece of paper, notebook, whatever, and sort of just compile your thoughts on how you feel your work is right now, right? And it's important to remember that getting hired is kind of like a new software. I think a lot of people think that you need to be, a master of your entire craft in order to get hired. I don't think it is 100% the case. You need to be able to do a very few things very well. So it's kind of like picking up a new software. It's kind of like getting a few tools that you're very familiar with in order to get a job done, right? And from there, you can work forward, learn more things, improving your craft. So I think taking some of the, some of your favorite artists, some of the studios you want to work for, maybe take 2 or 3 of each as a standard that you want to work to, and ask yourself, what do I need to do to meet that a similar standard, right? Look at artists that are working for your favorite studios or your favorite games. What are they doing that you're not, right? Is it purely a technical hard skill, or is it the way they're presenting their work, how they're creating character turnarounds, and what are they doing for their environments? These are all the questions you need to be asking yourself, right? And then from there, go and ask for more help. Talk to the communities that are out there, like the rookies. There's Discord servers, online, forums. Go to social media and look for common trends on what these people tell you. If you find that there's the same thing coming back over and over again, that's really valuable information, because that will be the most impactful thing that you could do in order to elevate your work, right? The worst thing is trying to, again, going back to taking on too many things, is trying to learn too many things at once. So, and finally, off the back of the finding the studios that you want to work for, reach out to art directors, senior members of staff, maybe hiring managers, and the such, and ask, what are you currently looking for? What is it that you kind of try to pinpoint when you're looking at an artist's work that I don't currently have, and how can I get there to elevate it, right? So by this point, you should have a huge amount of data, just based off your own feelings, other people's feelings, based off what the job market is asking from you. And this is an incredible jumping off point to get to the next stage. So you've identified the places that you would like to improve. All of these people have told you different things. There's things that a list as long as your arm of things that you would like to be improved upon. You need to find one skill that you'd like to improve upon that will make the biggest impact on people's impression of your work, right? So it's not just, I would like my colors to be better, but I would like to do more comprehensive breakdowns of my props, or I would like to make my textures on my 3D models more sort of better observed. I would like to use decals on my 3D props more. Whatever it is, you just take that skill, and it should be goal orientated and based off your feedback, feedback, right? So, for example, if you were an environment artist and you got a lot of feedback on, you know, things being unclear and like the story not making sense and the flow of the image not being great, maybe that's an issue of composition, right? There's like a through line of that feedback where you could work on making sure that your composition works and that the space feels like they're explorable, right? And that's how you sort of like narrow down what you'd like to do, what skill you'd like to work on first. So then you go away and you set the task, right? It should be something that you can do every single day. Don't get stuck in like a practice vortex, which is certainly where I was in, you know, a bunch of times during my studies. Give yourself like a realistic time limit to it. So like 2 to 3 weeks is a great amount of time to study one subject. Shortly after graduating university, I really wanted to get my facial anatomy, my portraiture going. I wanted sort of like my head construction to be way better. So I did like 30 heads a day. And that was like, you know, 2 or 3 hours a day of working in my sketchbook on the computer. Some of them were like high effort studies. Others were just like redrawing the Loomis head over and over again. And then at that point, I could create like quite convincing portraits, right? And if you look at my portfolio, there are some pretty good portraits and things I'm proud of my giant character. So that work produced the ability to create that body of work, right? And then as well, like schedule your time. So if you've only got 1 hour a day to work on this sort of thing, you can scope your studies accordingly. Don't think I only have 1 hour a day, but I want to do a full, high detailed environment piece every single day. That's unrealistic, right? Like if you want to work on your architecture and you only have 1 hour a day, then maybe isolate sections of different architecture that you would like to work on that you can execute in that hour. Again, like if you're feeling rushed, then the quality of the work isn't going to be as good. And studies do matter because they increase your learning, right? And so after your 2 or 3 weeks of learning, that you set a project that tests those skills, right? And you need to make it achievable and show off those skills. Give yourself a deadline and schedules, like I've said before, so that you can execute a project that and have a realistic end date to it. There's nothing worse than a project kind of spinning out of control, like this project that I'm currently working on is Valiant. But this is kind of the end of the project that I'm working on. Make sure that that project incorporates that skill. Obviously, you've been working on that skill for a while now, but you should also make sure that it sort of stretches you into other skill zones, right? So for this particular piece, this is some sketches I've done for the Forge, for the Nico settlement. I got feedback that I needed to create more iconic landmarks, that they needed to be easier to identify via the silhouette. And I was missing that gameplay first environments and interiors. So for this particular piece, I was like, well, you know, I'll try to make sure that like this feels like something that the character or the player would interact with. There would be like mechanical things that were connected to, like upgrading your weapons or your armor. So this is like what was pushing this particular aspect of the project. But it also, I'd done that macro work on the Nico settlement, and this was more about the micro, right? The one building that you would explore the interiors, and really push that storytelling as well. So I worked on sketching interiors for 2 weeks in my, again, sketchbook. I carry it with me everywhere. I you know, drew on the computer as much as I could. I don't have like an iPad or anything, so I'm traditional, or you know, computer digital. And I also worked on like silhouettes and such, trying to make them more identifiable. So I'm just going to take a sip. So now I'm creating the forge. I'm hitting all of those skills that I've been practicing for a while. All those parts of my portfolio that I just don't really feel like are being covered currently. But I'm also trying to stretch myself in like other ways. So I'm trying to use 3D in a more comprehensive way than I was before. A lot of the paintings that you saw previously were about 50-50 when it came to 3D to 2D. I'm now trying to push myself so that I'm using 3D in like a kind of 80-20 way. And so that this project will also be that, right? And the point of that is that there should be then something after this to evaluate again once you repeat the process. Finally, like for this, I would be writing a clear and accomplishable brief, right? Going back to setting deadlines and schedules, like it should be scoped well. There should be a theme, even like a title and reference pictures, just to direct the project in some way. And some flavor text that will maybe a combination of your thoughts of what you want the piece to be about. And finally, a list of deliverables that meets the scope of the project that you've got so far. And then you repeat this project, this process, right? You get back to analyzing work, right? You keep your ego to yourself. You cry about it if you need to. But ultimately, like you go back and you look at the work and go, right, so what is this fulfilling? What skills could I build upon? You look at back at your project, like what am I missing? What do I need to do next? And then you go back through this process, right? And this is like a great way to structure your learning, at least like that's what I've found. But it also gets you to pushes you to network, to reach out to people, to make those connections that you might not have ordinarily done, but also to stay in touch with your network, right? To like keep nurturing those relationships, maybe that, and each time the more you have that ability to reach out to people that you know well, the step one will always be easier the more people that you trust and can reach out to. But finally, it also fills out your portfolio with a breadth of skills to show off to a potential employer. I see it a lot, and I was guilty of it as well, where there's a lot of people who have similar things, like similar projects all through their portfolio. There's this character that they've gone through the same process for over and over and over again that doesn't really bring anything new or any more value to the table. So I would say that is probably the best bit about this, is that, you know, you're really thinking about each skill and how it's being demonstrated in each piece. And as you guys probably know, being part of the rookies, you know, there's month-long challenges and community competitions that this easily plugs into, right? You could, it's a great way to sort of interact with the online communities, and, you know, gives you a sort of purpose, like a small deadline to work to, and a larger deadline to sort of get this body of work in. But if you were to start out like with purpose on this, right? If you were to give it like, I want to learn more hard surface modeling, and you were to do March of the Robots, that's a great excuse to do lots of hard surface modeling. But it forces you to exercise and produce a work every single day that then plugs into the process of the structure that I've outlined, right? And you don't know who's watching, right? I got my first job by doing March of the Robots. I centered the challenge around experimenting with different workflows, from photo bashing, from 3D to 2D to VR. Like, it really pushed me to experiment, and it was very low risk, high reward if something didn't work out, I just had the next day to work on something different. And it was a really great learning opportunity for one, but also Milky Tea were looking for someone who could design mechs, and I think I produced about 25 by the end of it, so I missed some days, but I had this big body of work. They were like, "Oh, Nate can do mechs. Here we go. We'll get in touch," and that's what landed my first job, right? But with all that in mind, all of this is a good opportunity to find your people. Discords and social media and in-person meetups and events are great ways to connect with people and just sort of share your journey with people, like at the very least, but also build this community at the very most. And if you feel like you don't have that currently, like these share servers with like on Discord, the industry might feel very, very big. You might want to have something a bit more close knit or something more local. Don't be afraid to lead the way. Like I set up a local drink and draw when I was at university, and that still goes on to this day, right? So organizing meetups, hosting challenges, sort of connecting people that you might know from different aspects and trying to put them together is incredible, and you might make something very special. So wherever you end up engaging with each other, pros, people that you find along the way, it's really important to build a community and a strong connection between those people that you can work or even collaborate, right? And going back to what I was saying, where you can, it's a healthy place to get like constructive feedback, learn from each other's process. But it's also really, really important that you leave your ego at the door. And remember that success isn't a zero-sum game. You can learn from each other's journeys, and people doing well doesn't mean that you can't also do well. And I think that's like the toxic side of being competitive. Right, there is healthy competition, but at the same time, it's sometimes people get really in their own heads about this sort of thing. Be polite and stay professional when we're interacting in this industry or different communities. I think it's really easy to remember that the like professionalism and casual really gets, like, the line gets blurred quite a lot. The industry is super small, and your presence online, whether it be like on Discord or other social medias, or even in person with someone who knows somebody else who knows somebody else, could reflect how people perceive you, like in the future, right? So that's not to say that you have to wear a shirt and tie everywhere and address people by sir and madam, but having just a little bit of like internet self-awareness is always really valuable when we're interacting with people, whether they be our peers or whether they be pros. When you're reaching out to people, there are loads of people who work in the industry currently who are happy to talk to you, right? Like, all you have to do is reach out via Instagram or Discord or whatever. But these people love helping and giving back to the community. But when we're doing this, remember to sort of follow up with those people, say thank you and be gracious about it. If you do implement the work, the feedback, then maybe following up with them and saying, like, I did what you said and this was the result. But also being a giver as much as a taker when it comes to the communities that you're engaging in. So the giving feedback on communities and taking interest in people's work is just as important as getting something out of it, right? Like, people aren't going to be excited about your work if you never interact with anything other than posting your work and getting praise for yourself, right? So all of these things are great to remember, and sort of social etiquette, social skills online and offline etc. So this might seem like really obvious, but it took me a really long time to figure this out. And as I said, this is about what I would tell myself if I had the opportunity. I would just say, like, write everything down, right? Not only is it like easier to remember things, it's easier to reflect on things. That if you have like a bunch of thoughts in your head, whether like feelings or like, you know, concerns about something, or just, as I said before, like the thoughts about your work, then you getting them down on paper, something you can reflect back on. I've more than often gone back on like workshops that I've done and notes that I've taken. I was like, oh, that was that one thing that so and so said. Like, I'll go back. Oh, there we go. Or like doing like little diagrams of Blender material nodes in the back of my notebooks and stuff like that. Like, I've done that a bunch. So I always keep a notebook with me as well as a sketchbook. It also, when you're giving feedback to someone and that person is writing those things down, it feels like they are actively listening as opposed to passively nodding their head and you know, maybe go away and go, I don't know, you know, whatever. It feels like my time is being valued if that's the case. And that then carries over, that if you're working in industry, like whether that be a freelance position or an in-studio position, writing things down also makes people feel listened to, and you have your perceived you know, record of events in front of you that you can refer back to. There's nothing worse than someone kind of messaging you a couple of days later. It's like, what was that one thing that we mentioned? And I was like, man, like, just write things down. Like, you know, you don't have to remember everything. And then the final thing is, and this is something that once I did start writing things down, that I took as gospel, was that if it's important enough to be repeated, it's important enough to be written down again. If something keeps recurring over and over again, and that's something that, whether it be feedback or whether it's, you know, in workshops that you watch or talks that you attend, that if it's being said over and over again by multiple different people, it's probably worth writing down, if not just to remember it more solidly, right? Develop a daily practice. I think this kind of goes back to the like self-study structure that I outlined, and I think, you know, again, it's quite self-explanatory. But I've attended talks where people have said, I work 16 hours a day, and that's how I got into the industry. And I think that's really cool. But I've also met people who say that they work 16 hours a day, and, you know, they clearly haven't. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that hours always equate to being better, faster, or making more work. It just might be spread out over a bigger period. So I think that there is a level of competition, or at least when I was coming up, of who can do the most hours, you know, in a day of work. I think it's more important to focus on quality studying, quality work, and rather than like rushing or pushing yourself to create more stuff, or rushing to finish a painting or a model or whatever. But if you find yourself like having not a structured steady practice, start really small, right? Like, I don't know whether any of you guys have read Atomic Habits, but that's a really great book to read when it comes to structuring this stuff. Connect it to a thing that you already do. If you have coffee, sit down and draw for half an hour while you have a coffee in the morning. If you're you know, brushing your teeth in the evening, like, just sit and read your you know, the art book that you're reading right now for half an hour in the evening just before you go to bed. Like, connecting to those things is easier to build habits, right? Observation. One second, I'm just gonna. If you're studying a visual medium, observation is one of the most valuable things that you can do, right? So whether you be a character, an environment, VFX, tech artist, whatever, even in concept artists especially, drawing from observation, taking photographs, like learning about the world around you is going to be so valuable for the work that you produce. It's going to make things feel more believable. You're going to understand the world around you. Small details that you never would have thought about, you start to see. I sat and I drew multiple times over the course of a year a row of houses and the rooftops. Like I drew those. And over time, I started to learn about the small details of, oh, there's some disrepair there. Oh, there's a bird's nest in this house. Oh, there's this tree that grows behind here. These are the shapes that these trees make. And I started to find little surprises that arouse because I kept digging and I kept learning about, the one subject matter. And that's just a row of houses in Cornwall. So I push you to just go and draw the mundane, draw the spectacular, take photos and try to look at it at different lenses every time that you go back to the same subject, if that's what you happen to do. Because it's so obvious when someone doesn't do observation work. It's really obvious when people don't understand the details of the world around them. Not just like working with reference when they're making work, but also like making portfolio work or whatever, but also just in general, just looking around them and just observing, whether that be drawing or whether that be like just generally like trying to understand the world that they're in. Like again, this might be super obvious, but read everything you possibly can. Books are super valuable. I think it's my personal opinion that things like YouTube videos, short-term content, even like talks like this, try to distill things down into a digestible, easy to comprehend version of things, where books will do the slow and painful bit, right? And if you're looking for really in-depth learning, books are probably the best source for that. I was under the impression, and like probably many people, that if you have the books on your shelf, you will get the information through osmosis, right? Like, how many people have you spoken to and gone, oh, have you read this? And they go, oh, I have that book. Don't be that person. be different to that. Try to make sure that you really look at some of the books that are going to give a lot of value to you, and then work to finish those books, right? I keep talking about schedules and deadlines. Do it again with books. Like, this is the book that I'm reading this week. This is the book I'm reading for the next fortnight. Let it feed into your self-study structure of using exercises in books and that you could use as a part of your study that gets you better at one particular skill. Carrying on. So if you guys are like interested in concept art, or drawing and painting, illustration, whatever, these books might be like pretty self-explanatory. They're quite famous books, but these books were the really important books that I read for me that changed the game quite significantly. So How to Draw by and How to Render by Scott Robinson. My work was like night and day, right? People responded to my work very differently. I understood how to draw 3D forms in a way more understandable way. I use this in characters, not just cars and buildings and such, like Scott Morrison does in his book. I think that those skills are really transferable to any subject matter. Framed ink, that's just composition, sequential art, understanding lighting and sort of setting things up like movies, like a movie scene or a photographer studio. Makes you really think about placing things in the scene and on the canvas. Force drawing, human anatomy. this one, like, all about posing and pushing poses. If you're designing characters in any way, animating and giving like to those characters and personality is going to be a really great way to convey the idea of the character to art directors, to creative directors, to people looking at them, right? Like, a posing is all well and good, but it's a bit of a telltale sign of that you don't. You need a couple more steps to your character design, you know, bow, if you will. And then Colour and Light by James Gurney, which is just a fantastic piece of literature, and it's understanding how Colour and Light works. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's a big game changer and was for me at the time. Finally, like, setting yourself up to succeed, right? Focus on the things that are in your control. Right now, and it's no secret that the industry is pretty scary for a lot of people, not just people coming in, but people who are have lost their jobs. I got made redundant a few months ago, who are currently in the industry as well. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty, but it's always best to remember that, like, you can affect the things that are in your power. So work on things that you're in your control, cater to a skill set for the industry, make your portfolio the best it can be, improve on soft skills as well as hard. It's kind of been a lot about what I've been saying today, is like, sort of painting and modeling and drawing and texturing. Like, those are all incredible skills. But things like being professional and your teamwork and your social skills are also things that you can work on, get better at, and will make you more employable, right? It's easier to work with somebody who is nice and funny, and someone who you want to get to know, but is also very talented. So having a balance of those hard and soft skills are super important. My old mentor used to say that learning is sometimes slow and painful, and I don't know whether maybe you guys are superstars, but I learn very, very slowly, and it does feel very painful quite a lot. So be humble, learn from my experiences, don't take on too much. Going fast isn't necessarily mean that you go far, right? You burn out bright, and burnout is a real thing in this industry. And yeah, so plan your time. I mean, a lot of the plan your time, plan your aims. A lot of what I've been saying today, goes along with like having a plan for your learning and your self learning. So plan out your aims, your next 3 months, the next month, the next year. Your long term plan should affect your medium and short terms, and you go from there. So where do you want to be at the end this time next year? The end of the year, it's like 2 months from now. Where do you want to be at the end of the year? What does that future look like? What can you do to make that come about? Focus on the things that are in your control, right? So like, your short-term stuff is that I have all these things to do. I have this commission to finish. I have this contract to fulfill. I have this project that needs finishing. Like, clear your plate and plan your next move into your medium goals. Get that project set up and use that structure that I've outlined today to kind of plan that goal, plan that project that's going to boost your career forward. And I feel like I'm repeating this bit, and I am sorry, but schedule your time. Give yourself a scope on like what a day's work looks like. What does a week? What does a month work look like? This is super important, because if not only for you in predicting like how much work you can realistically get, but once you land that job, when someone goes, so we need this, and this done, how long is that going to take? And you go, I've never thought about it. It's really great to like kind of to schedule your time and also audit your time, so the answers to those questions. It makes you look a lot more professional in a professional sense. So use like scrum boards, to effectively map out how you're going to tackle some of the tasks or goals or projects. I use Notion, and it's like a place just for for all my notes, my goals, my scrum boards, world building projects, like all this sort of thing. I just throw in references and my old paintings and stuff, and it's just a place where I can just look at everything. So I find that super helpful. And so that's everything, guys. Yeah, thank you again for coming to the talk. And yeah, if there's any questions, I'm happy to